Listen, how we doing, guys? Pretty good. Come on, all right, so listen, what we're going to do is we're going to show this to everybody tomorrow. We're going to talk about a lot of serious stuff today, okay? First and foremost, I only have one rule that I always like to just say is just respect. And that goes for anybody who's actually watching the video. When you're watching it in classes, you want to make sure that you're respecting people around you. We're going to talk about a lot of serious subjects today. So you want to make sure that you're sensitive to the people around you. When I'm talking about my 2 suicide attempts and the time I spent locked up in prison for things I did and child abuse that I went through, you want to make sure that you're not laughing, giggling, carrying on, because you never know if right around you someone's going through the very thing that we're talking about. They see you disrespecting that, then that can actually do what I call re-victimizing people. So we're going to cover a lot of ground, okay? But I'll tell you a little bit about what I do. I've been a full-time Batman for 9 years. They call me West Virginia Batman, but I wasn't always Batman. Long before I was Batman, I was a firefighter, and I was a kid that went through a lot of really tough stuff, okay? The one thing I'm going to do today is I don't want anybody to think they got to hide behind a mask in order to talk to you about the things I'm going to talk to you about, because I believe that transparency and sharing stories is what changes lives. The great news is I just got done talking to the high school this morning. Amazing assembly. We had the entire school in on it, and I'm pretty sure that we impacted them in a big way too, to where when you guys get ready to go up into that high school next year, I believe that what happened today is going to impact how they treat you when you get in there. So I'm expecting good things on that. On another note also, this entire tour is dedicated to 2 kids. Number one, well, Dylan, not necessarily a kid, but Dylan Stafford, you lost him to suicide. And then we had Christian Doherty, who we lost not too long ago, actually, to childhood cancer, brain cancer. But about Dylan's story, I understand he went to this school, and I was at his high school today. So the youth suicide statistics, I don't even know if you guys realize it or not, but they're pretty alarming. But every day we have about 6,000 youth attempting suicide every day. So if you take 6,000 and multiply it by 365, you're looking at 2.1 million of you all every year attempting suicide. 2 days ago, I read another sobering article. It actually stated that right now, 26% of young adults have suicidal ideations right now, which is 1/4 of our young adult population. You realize how serious that is? That's a big deal. We have a pain epidemic going on. It's been going on for a long time. The pain epidemic is actually bigger than anything else we got going on. What do you think the number one killer of youth is today? What?
Bullies.
No.
Oh.
The number one. What do you think the number one is? Number one.
Social media?
No. What do you think is the number one thing that's taking our young lives today? Anybody else? Yes.
Oh.
What? Nope. It's not drugs. It's not guns. Go. Accidents. Accidents is the number one cause of death. Those things that just happen, unfortunate things that just happen, right? What do you think the number 2? What do you think is under that? Number 2. It'll probably surpass it within the next 12 to 24 months. Suicide. So if you remove accidents from the equation, the top thing that's taken your lives that's fully preventable is suicide. So today I'm going to teach you 4 things. We're going to talk about 4 things. These are 4 things that I did to change my life after 2 suicide attempts in my own life. I've been there, done that. I know what it's like to be at that place, and there's a lot of people all around us every day who are there also. We're going to cover a lot of ground, but I'm going to take this off and talk to you as myself. Is that cool?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. I'm going to put on my favorite hat, too.
Unmasking.
Ooh.
All right, so my real name is John Buckland, okay? I live in West Virginia now. I'm not from there originally. I'm basically a transplant there. I was a firefighter before I became Batman, but long before that, I was a kid that went through a lot of really bad stuff, okay? I grew up in an abusive home. My father grew up in an abusive home. Basically, he just passed it on down to us. My dad was in the military, though, so I was born in Spain. I lived in Iceland. I've been to Germany, all over the country. I moved a lot, which made it tough for me as a kid, because I was always going to a school and having to leave, going to a school and having to leave. On top of that, my life at home was not all that great. My life at home was basically characterized by watching Dad throw Mom around the kitchen by her hair, beat us up as kids, had my nose busted because I wasn't delivering newspapers fast enough for my dad to get home and watch the football game. Just a really, really troubled life as a kid. I had an older brother. He would pick on me too. Basically, it was just raining downhill. Dad would pick on him, he would pick on me. It's just wash, rinse, repeat. You see, my dad never got any help for the stuff that he went through in his upbringing. So he grew up in an alcoholic home, watching his parents argue. I didn't even realize all that went on. I just knew them as grandma and grandpa. But obviously, he had a really, really tough life, and he never got any help for it, and as a result, he passed it on down to us. So as an elementary kid, I didn't really make friends that well. So I kind of ate lunch by myself, played by myself, wasn't really good at sports, didn't really like to make friends too much because I couldn't trust people. I couldn't trust people because the people that were closest to me were the ones hurting me the most. So it was really hard for me. Unfortunately, that made me a target in school. So instead of anybody reaching out, trying to figure out what in the world was going on, is there anything they can do to help, anything that should have been done didn't get done. And so as a result, I got picked on, I got bullied, beat up a lot, all kinds of things happened to me in elementary school. Now as I got into middle school, this age right here, parents tried to get me into some other things, Little League, scouting, all that stuff. Now I really liked Little League, but wasn't that good at it. Scouting I enjoyed because I liked doing all the stuff we did. Problem we had though was our scout leader was a predator. Does anybody know what a predator is? What's a predator? Go ahead and say it.
Somebody.
That's right. Somebody goes after little kids, abuses little kids in the worst ways you can imagine. So me and 12 other boys were horribly abused by a scout leader for 2 whole years. Nobody ever said anything. We all kept the secret, unfortunately. We were all just a bunch of broken kids trying to get through. He got caught. Once he got caught, he got sentenced to Leavenworth prison. It never changed his life. He then went on to keep doing it, okay? But nobody came to us to get us any help, even though they knew what happened, where it happened, how it happened, everything. They knew everything about it. Nobody came to us to get us any help. They basically took our files, put us in a box, shoved us into a closet somewhere at the headquarters, and completely forgot about us. How do you think that did for us? What kind of lives do you think we had? Horrible ones. We all went off the rails. Okay, so during middle school, basically I surrounded myself with other kids who were just as broken as I was. We all got in trouble together. We all smoked together. We all got high together. We all skipped school together and all this stuff. By the time I got to high school, I was already into addiction. So here I go, I'm going into my freshman year, already into drug use. As far as nicotine and tobacco is concerned, man, I smoked so many cigarettes, I don't know what that did to my brain with all that nicotine I pumped in there. Did y'all know that nicotine actually changes your brain chemistry? I had no clue. I didn't learn that until like a few years ago. Did you know that? It literally does, guys. We'll talk about that later, but it's a crazy thing because I go back and I look back at my life now and all those cigarettes I was smoking and everything and all that stuff I was pumping into my body. I never realized that nicotine actually alters your brain chemistry. And it actually goes after your emotional development centers and all kinds, it's crazy. It affects your decision-making capabilities, everything. So it can affect your love life, it can affect your relationships, it can affect your decision-making. I had no clue, which made sense to me when I started seeing, when they started coming out with vaping stuff. They did, I'm going to kind of go off on a tangent here for a second, but you realize in the vaping stuff, they did you all a favor. You know what the favor was? They had everybody thinking that what makes cigarettes so bad was the fact that they were quote-unquote cancer causing. Okay, so everybody's arguing about what's better, vaping or smoking, as far as cancer is concerned. But here's the courtesy that they didn't tell you. Well, we're going to put 3 times as much nicotine in the vape devices now. So now they've increased the level of nicotine that they're putting into the vape devices so that 3 times more damage can be done to your brain as it grows. Now here's the crazy thing about your brain. You ready for this? I'm going off on this because I stop and think that as I share about the things I did and the decisions I made, I want you to wonder, man, I wonder how much all those chemicals really jacked him up to where it messed up his ability to make sound decisions, okay? So 3 times as much nicotine going into this stuff. And then they flavored it, right? You think they flavored it for the adults? You think we really care? No, I was smoking Camel non-filters. You think that all the cute stuff that they did over the years, they did you a favor. They wanted to make it appealing to you, right? So that's where the flavors came in. So that's what you're dealing with. And I always tell the younger generation, war, I don't care what you say, war has been declared on you. And they're pumping out a whole bunch of stuff that's designed to completely destroy you guys. And my job is to show up and wake you up to it. Does this make sense?
Yes, sir.
So I stop and I wonder, as I share about the things I did and the gun that I held in people's head to take their money that night, and the 7.5 years that I spent in maximum security prison, I often wonder how much of what I put into my system impacted my decision making. And I'm not using those as excuses, but there's no doubt that you don't realize that your brain doesn't stop growing until 26 years old. 26, everybody say that, 26.
26.
Okay, it means you're about halfway there. So it's about halfway there, right? 26, okay? The last part of your brain to grow is right here in the front, and it's your ability to understand consequences for your actions, okay? It's pretty crazy. It's crazy. It's sobering. And the reason I'm telling you this is because of how important it is that you all understand that. And every time you put something into your system that gets in the way of that development, you're going to stunt your growth. This is why we have, like for me, here I was going into prison at 21 years old. I was 21 physically, but because I never got any help from my trauma that I went through and I had all those chemicals, when my trauma happened to me at 12, how old was I emotionally? So I was 21 going on 12. Does this make sense? Mm-hmm. We see it every day, don't we, grown-ups? I mean, we do. We see it every day. And this is what we got going on. It's a pain epidemic. Okay, right now, in this last calendar year, you ready for this? I'm going to go off again. In this last calendar year, we've lost 100,000, 96,000 and some change. I'm going to round it up to 100,000 people to fentanyl overdoses. 10,000 a month to fentanyl. They just seized 50 pounds of fentanyl coming in from the southern border just last week. 50 pounds. You say that's not much for a whole country. Oh yeah, it is. Because you don't realize how little bit of fentanyl it takes to kill somebody. It's minuscule. It's smaller than that cap he's got on his table. It's smaller than your pinky nail that can kill you. They're putting it in everything now, guys. Just for you, they're putting it in everything. They're putting it in weed, they're putting it in vape devices, they're putting it anywhere they can get it to get you on this stuff. And 50 pounds is what they seized. How much you think got through?
200.
Drugs are not like it used to be. Okay? Drugs were always bad. But when we used drugs back in the day, you know, for me, when I was in all that stuff, I mean, I've been clean for over 30 years, okay? But back then, we did it to have fun, to get high, this and that. It ain't like that anymore. It's a total different game. Now the stuff they're putting out is flat out there to kill you. The stuff coming in from Russia, crocodilia, and all the other stuff that they're importing into this country is designed to kill you. It is not designed to give you a good time. So you can't even afford to try this stuff one time just because you're experimenting or curious. You can't even afford to do that anymore. It's that destructive, okay? So I stop and I wonder how much of the chemicals that I put into my system, including the nicotine. See, they're really smart. They've had us arguing about cancer for the longest time while they slid in 3 times the amount of nicotine into your vape devices. So if anybody watching this has a vape, I highly recommend that you get rid of it and destroy it, okay? Because to continue doing so means that every time you put that stuff into you, along with the aluminum and everything else that goes into your lungs with that, you're doing 3 times as much damage. And it will impact how you are in your relationships. It will impact what kind of boyfriend or girlfriend you are. It will also impact down the road what kind of daddy you become and how your relationships are. It will also impact how you handle crisis when you go through tough things in your life. Okay? That's just the way it is. So now here I am, junior high, going into high school. Now I'm stealing my parents' car out of the garage to go buy drugs in downtown Austin, Texas. Grand theft auto, my parents' own vehicle, taking money out of my dad's wallet. See, my philosophy back then was, you treated me so bad, you owe me this. I figured out something about life. No matter how bad we've been treated and what's happened, the world doesn't owe us nothing. I figured out that I owe it to myself. I owe it to myself to do something with my life with what the world has to offer. But I was going to have to do that work. But it took me several years to get there. So now my parents kicked me out of the house because they can't have me around anymore. So now I'm homeless as a senior in high school. Instead of being worried about class rings and prom and all this other good stuff that I should be worried about, all the nice warm fuzzy stuff, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to survive. And what I did was I moved in with my friends. Everybody say friends.
Friends.
All right, I moved in with my friends, the ones I used with, the ones I partied with, the ones that were supposed to look out for each other, right? My road dogs, okay? Come home from work one day, guess what happened? All my stuff is gone. Who do you think took it?
Your friends.
My friends. They took everything I had. I didn't pick up the phone. Who do you think I called?
Your mom.
No, I called who said my mom? Spot on. I called my mom. Isn't that something? How do you think that conversation went?
Not well.
Not well. My mom actually said the thing that kind of set me on the path. It was the first time in my life she stuck up for me. See, she never stuck up for herself when Daddy threw her around the kitchen and beat her up. She never stuck up for me when Daddy was beating me up. She never stuck up for Troy when Daddy was beating him up. But this time she stuck up. She stood up and she basically said, you know what? I said, Mom, I don't have anything to eat here. The lights are out, the gas is off. Back then they didn't have the SpaghettiOs with the flip-top lids. So one of the craziest memories I have is trying to open a can of SpaghettiOs with the back of a fork. It was horrible. It was ridiculous. Serious story, it's truly crazy. That's one of the crazy memories I have. And I said, well, Mom, I could die out here. She says, well, you know what? You're just going to have to die. She hung up the phone. Sounds harsh, but you know what she did? They stopped enabling me. She let me hit bottom. So I hit bottom all right. I said a few choice words that she didn't hear. But to this day, my mom and I have a great relationship now, okay, just so you know. But that was the most heroic thing that she could have done because it set me off. And I went off on a tangent. Things didn't get better yet. During this time also in high school, I'm going to talk to you about something else that you all need to know because there's a whole lot of things that you see and a whole lot of things that we've normalized that really aren't right. And one of which is relationships. Okay, see, because I became a professional rebounder. You know what a rebounder is? Okay. A rebounder is somebody that just can't be alone. In one relationship, that one busts up for whatever reason, two damaged people get together, they never got any help before they came together, and as a result, boom, that one goes up within 2 weeks. What happens? They're playing the dating game again, right? You see it, they're on Facebook, the women are putting their makeup on, the guys are in the gym working out, oh, I'm going to get her this time, I'm going to get him, I'm going to find Mr. or Mrs. Right, it's going to work out. They never do an autopsy on what broke the relationships in the first place. Within a few weeks, maybe even a couple months, what do they have again?
A toxic relationship.
Toxic relationship, another one. Everybody say wash, rinse, repeat.
Wash, rinse, repeat.
The unfortunate thing is we've normalized this behavior. This is not the way it should be, guys. I don't care what the reality shows show you. I don't care what even our regular parents show us. It's not supposed to be this way. Okay? It's not supposed to be this way. The broken home epidemic is destroying us. Do you understand that? I mean, it is literally destroying us. Because nobody is taking into account that when a home breaks up, what is it doing to the emotional DNA of you all? You understand? Okay, it's an epidemic. And it doesn't matter what color you are, what gender you are, all that's irrelevant. It does the same damage regardless. Okay? So, I was a rebounder. Couldn't be alone. Because I collected people to my life to make myself feel better about myself. Because Daddy never taught me how to love myself. So if he never taught me how to love myself, there's no way that I could ever know how to love somebody else. Guys, you can't love somebody else anyway until you know how to truly love yourself. And the way that you know you've arrived at loving yourself is when you can look in the mirror and say, you know what, even if I don't have anybody in my life, I am perfectly okay. And that's when the right person is going to come along for you. But as long as we're out here trying to grab people to us and oh my gosh, we're panicking because we don't have that relationship, or oh gosh, I just lost this person, there's no way I can exist without them, and all this other stuff, those are all warning signs, guys. Okay? Those are all warning signs. Well, that's where I was, in and out of relationships. Now here I go from high school, me and my high school sweetheart, right? The one that I almost got to overdose, unfortunately, by the drugs that I introduced to her. We moved out from Texas to Georgia. How do you think that relationship went? Do you think it was happily ever after?
No.
No, her dad hated me for good reasons. See, she was from a broken home too. She was horribly abused and raped by her own brother and his friends. And so she was naturally drawn to somebody else that was broken. Crazy thing about my life is, I look back on all the girls I had in my life, and it was like I was a magnet for other broken girls too. And that's just what happens. We find ourselves, if we don't get help for the things we go through when we're kids or whatever's happened in our life, then what will happen, we'll find ourselves in this crazy cycle where we're always saying this: why in the world do I keep attracting these kind of people? It's just the way it happens. You know what I'm talking about. It's just the way it happens. And it's happening to parents all over the world. I got friends that have, seriously, I got good friends, successful in the work world, but when it comes to parenting, oh my gosh, it's a train wreck. 4 different kids by 4 different dads, all kinds of crazy stuff going on out there, guys, and you guys are the ones picking up the tab for it. I have to get you guys to reset. Something has to happen to get this generation, your generation, to reset. Because if something doesn't happen for us to reset you, we're in trouble in 30 years. Do you understand that? I can't imagine what schools are going to look like in 20 or 30 years when your kids are going to school. You're going to remember this conversation. If nothing changes, you're going to remember this conversation. You're going to say, man, that crazy Batman dude that showed up and we were eating pizza, he was so right. I don't even want to send my kid to school now because it's so violent. Because when the pain epidemic gets passed down, it gets more violent and more destructive with every generation. I'll prove it to you. We didn't have school shootings to the level we have them now 40 years ago. And it's only going to get worse if you don't change it. Does that make sense? That's what I'm here for. I'm here to empower you to make the change because there aren't enough cops in the schools to do it. Okay? Politicians, I don't even think most of them care. You know why? You say, man, that's a harsh statement. You know why I say? When's the last time you saw a commercial on TV or a politician talking about youth suicide with 2.1 million of you a year attempting it? When's the last time you saw a commercial about that? 26% of our young adults right now have suicidal tendencies and ideations, okay? When's the last time you heard somebody high up talking about that? Is that in the new bill trying to be passed? I don't think so. Do they have billions of dollars to send counselors into schools? I don't think so. Do they have billions of dollars allotted for mental health to reach youth? I don't think so. It's a good question, isn't it? You guys are the future leaders. You're the ones to change it. If I can inspire you, man, heck, you might grow up and become president one day and actually do something about this, while everybody else argues about everything else. True?
Yes, sir.
So here I am. Well, you can't call me sir because I work for a living. I say that in the military, by the way. So listen, there I am. Mom shuts me down. We moved to Georgia. That relationship breaks up. Within 2 weeks, what do you think I got?
Another relationship.
Another girl. That's right, I got another girl. Now, she's younger than me. I'm 20, she's 18. Her name is Celeste. She just got out of high school. She's rebelling from her parents. Had a great family. Her mom was a little bit on the controlling side, but they at least cared about her very well. And she was obviously pushed right into my arms because she's trying to rebel from that structure, correct? And I have the ability to basically pretend to be everything that she needs me to be, like a lot of us do at that time. You know, when you're in addiction, you're manipulative, you're deceptive, you can pretend to be something you're really not, and that's what she fell for. So I got her introduced to drugs and alcohol, got her in on that stuff. This one got complicated because what do you think happened?
She almost overdosed.
We got pregnant. Oh boy. Now I got a boy on the way at 20. I'm 20 going on 12, right? Remember that? You think I'm ready to be a dad? Happens every day. Happens every day. I don't even know what it means to be a man yet, much less be a daddy. How do you think that relationship went? Even though everybody's thinking, oh, maybe the baby will slow him down. Maybe he'll become a better person. You think it's going to help? No. It doesn't work. There's nothing outside of you that's going to change you until you're ready to make that change yourself. And something hits you so hard that you're like, you know what? I'm willing to do whatever it takes to change this. I'm going to be the one person in my family to break this cycle, because if I don't want to pass this on to my kids and grandkids anymore. No way. And even though I grew up telling my dad, I hate you and I'm never going to be like you, who was I becoming just like? Happens every day. Every day. The last actual physical confrontation I had with her was when I was chasing her down the street. She was clutching my 1-year-old son. She was running from me because she was terrified. She jumped into a strange car with 2 men she didn't even know to get away from the father of her child. How scared do you think she was of me?
Very.
Very. I lost custody of my son. He's ripped out of my life, rightfully so. They had to protect him and her from me. I go off the deep end. I have 2 suicide attempts because, of course, I lost my job, I lost my kid, I lost everything. Because all of my self-worth was attached to the things that I have, not who I am. See, Daddy never taught me how to love myself, right? So everything in my self-worth was attached to what I have. When all that was stripped away, what do you think happened to me? Boom. Had 2 suicide attempts. I truly did not want to wake up from those. And I remember being angry when I did. I truly wanted to die. I remember having a sick sense of peace when I shut my eyes because I truly didn't want to live anymore. But I woke up and I survived. Thank God I did, because millions of people have heard my messages and my story from all over the world. If the world would have lost me, it would have been tragic. Some of you say, man, that's a cocky thing to say. No, it's not. It's real. Every single one of us has a story. Every single one of us matters. The problem is no one's teaching you all, no one's teaching the young adults how much you really do matter. They're all too busy just trying to pump stuff into you, okay? They're all just too busy arguing with each other instead of taking the time to tell you that, look, if we lose one of you, we're all going to suffer for it. So it's a good thing that I didn't die from that, because I wouldn't be here talking to you. You wouldn't be eating this nice pizza. You wouldn't be hanging out, and this wouldn't be happening right now. The high school, 1,400 kids would not have heard what they just heard this morning. 35 kids that are on my Batmobile in plaques, most of them. I actually rode with them in my car before they passed away from terminal illnesses. That would have never happened. I never would have met a president of the United States because of my life. All kinds of things just wouldn't have happened. I never would have been there to help lay to rest 4-year-old Jacob Hall in Townville, South Carolina, who was gunned down by an 11-year-old boy who was angry at his father, who stole his dad's truck, killed his daddy, went to an elementary school in Townville, South Carolina, aimed on killing 50 kids, killed young Jacob Hall, who he didn't even know. I was called there to speak at the funeral. That would have never happened if I would have succeeded at my suicide. Every single one of us are important. Every single one of us matters. I'm getting sick and tired of the whole who matters argument, because everybody does. Everybody's important. If we lose one, the whole world suffers. Y'all get that? So there I am. So now I go off the deep end. I survived those. Now I'm going to get my life together. Here comes the logic. This is what I'm going to call this the nicotine logic. You ready? Here comes my nicotine logic. Okay? Because I got so many chemicals in my head anyway. Here comes my nicotine logic. I'm going to get my life together. I'm going to rebuild. I'm going to do something to make me some quick money, so I'm going to rob a couple of restaurants. That's good nicotine logic, right? You think it worked? Nope. No, it didn't work at all. I got caught a week later. They busted in my door, locked me up, 12 years to serve 10, maximum security prison, state of Georgia. We're not talking about the cute little probation and, we're not talking about all that stuff. We're talking about 12 years to serve 10. I had to serve at least 5 before I could even be considered for parole. This was going to be a hard time. When I got in the county jail, an inmate came to me and asked me the question that changed my life. He was another African-American inmate. He was a tall, big old guy. He was in there for 2 life sentences for drug trafficking. I don't know how long. I don't even know if he got out. But he came to me, he says, "Why are you so angry and taking it out on the rest of the world? What did somebody do to you that was so bad that you're destroying everything around you?" I cussed him out because I didn't want to hear it. Who are you to tell me this? you're in here for 2 life sentences. He says, yeah, but the difference between me and you is I'm on my way to change, you're not. He says, you're probably going to get out before I do. That's why I'm talking to you. He says, because if you don't change, you're going to kill somebody. That conversation changed my life. Because every day I sat in that cell, I thought about that question and all the people I hated. Did I have a right to be angry about the way I was treated? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Of course I did. Should I have been sad about it?
No.
Sure. But did I have a right to take it out on others?
No.
See, that's where I went wrong. At some point, we reach that age of accountability where we have to realize, wait a minute, man. As much as I told my dad I hate him and I'm never going to be like him, he never held a 357 to the heads of teenagers behind a counter, cut the phone cords, locked these poor girls in a cooler, and made these girls believe they were going to die that day. He never did that. I realize I've actually become worse. And that's what happens when the pain epidemic gets passed down. It becomes worse. So I decided I was going to make a change. The first thing I decided to do was I was going to find myself a counselor in the system. You see, I was going to find myself a counselor. So anybody that says, oh, my life is hard, I live in a bad neighborhood, my parents are this, there's no way I can change my life, blah, blah, that's all garbage. If you want to work hard enough, you can change. There's always people around you and resources around you to change. If you want to change and you want to be the person in your family that makes that impact and change your family forever, you can be the one to do that if you're willing to do the work. Everybody say, willing to do the work.
Willing to do the work.
Okay, but we can't sit here and grow up and say, you know what, my life has been hard, my daddy was bad to me, now the world owes me everything. I deserve to make $25 an hour just because my life has been hard, but I'm not willing to work for it. Does that make any sense?
No.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I figured something out. The more I talked about, when I got in front of that counselor, I started talking about the things that I've never talked about before. I figured out the more I shared that stuff, 75% of my healing, you know what it was running my mouth about it. It was crazy. I learned something about the heart too. The heart compared to a broken bone. See, when you break your bone, they're going to set it in a cast. You can rub aloe on it all you want, but you can't speed that process up. You can't speed it up, can you? That bone is going to take a certain amount. They say 12, 15 weeks. You got to wear this. Here's what you got to do. You can't speed that process up. Am I correct? The heart is a whole different animal. The heart will heal as fast as you work it to. It's crazy. I figured out that the more I talked about the stuff that I kept hidden, the more I wrote about the stuff that was traumatic for me, the quicker I healed, the better I felt, the more empowered I became. Because it got rid of those negative feelings. It got rid of the guilt, the shame, the depression, all that stuff. It just started sliding away. I was like, this is crazy, man, because I'm sharing. See, because some of you look at me like, I get it all the time. I see the same face. Some of you, when I start talking about being raped and molested for 2 years by another man with 12 other boys, people are like, how in the world can you talk about that so easily? Because it doesn't have power in my life anymore. That dude was forgiven long ago through counseling and intervention. And I realized that forgiveness wasn't for him because he never changed. That forgiveness was for me so that I could move on. Why in the world am I going to continue to let the people that abused me have that power in my life? Why? If I hated what they did to me so much, why in the world wouldn't I want to release that as quickly as possible? So journaling about it, talking about it was the key. Then something happened, man. For the first time in my life, you know where I actually learned to have goals for my life? Prison. Prison, where I realized there's so much about my childhood that I learned over the years. One of the most profound things that I learned is I never had a goal for my life as a kid growing up, ever. I never had a goal. My first goals that I had, and I actually drove people crazy because I wanted to do so much. I mean, I was in prison doing everything. GED, optical lab technicians program, landscaping and horticulture. I wanted to get into the firefighting program. I mean, I wanted to do everything. I was in Bible studies. I was in the choir. I was doing this. I was doing that. You know why I did it? It's not because I wanted to make eyeglasses for a living when I got out. It wasn't because I wanted to cut grass for a living. You know what it was? I was proving to me that, number one, I'm not stupid like my dad grew up. You know, when I grew up, my dad always called me stupid. So naturally, I believed I was what?
Stupid.
Okay, so I was on a mission to prove myself to myself. Everybody say that. Prove myself
Prove myself.
to myself.
To myself.
Say it again. Prove myself
Prove myself.
to myself.
To myself.
So I went into the subjects that were the most difficult for me. Then they classified me, which means basically classified is when they put you on a bus about 2 in the morning, okay, with a whole bunch of other inmates. All your belongings are put into a bag. They shackle your legs and it's the worst bus ride ever. You're worn out, you're dead tired. Then you get to Jackson State Prison. They shave your head completely bald. You become a number. EF290974 became my new identity. You take the coldest shower you'll ever take with a whole bunch of other naked people. Okay? Right hand on the wall everywhere you walk. It's the Stone City. And then I get classified. I'm in there for 4 months and I get sent to Hayes State Prison, which is one of the worst prisons in the state of Georgia. I'm like, what in the world did I do to deserve this? But here's what I realized. When I got there, guess what? They had a college program. There was a college program coming in from Shorter University, and the actual professors actually came into the prison. Pell Grant money was actually set aside for that to where it funded us going to college. It was amazing. So you know what? That was where I also learned that I was not what?
Stupid.
Exactly. So I went to college. I held a 4.0 average the whole time. Human Resources Management. I was learning. Guess what else? You know what else they let me do? When I went to the main administrator, I was like, look, can I take some of these other classes that I think will really be helpful for me? And she was like, well, what do you want to take? Her name was Betty Zane Morris. I'll never forget her. God bless her. She helped change my life. I said, well, I'd love to take this one class called Marriage and Family Relationships. You think that can help me? You think that's going to be helpful for me? Oh, yeah. Sociology, psychology. And then I tackled college math, too. Because the time that my dad yelled at me the most and called me stupid was when we were studying math the most. So I studied that subject the hardest. What kind of grade do you think I made in college math?
A.
99. I was competing with another guy. I think he was from Korea. He made 100 for that semester. I made a 99. It was incredible. And we were tutoring other inmates through it. But I studied the classes that I needed to learn about myself. Guys, when we have things in our life that are destructive, or people in our life, and we had a daddy that wasn't there, or a mommy that wasn't there, or things tragic have happened in our life, it's at that point we have to make the decision that we're willing to do whatever we're going to take to break that cycle. College helped me a lot. So now I had counseling, now I had college, now I had trade schools, everything I was doing to rebuild. Okay? Then they passed a crime bill in 1995 that basically said, you know what, inmates aren't worth educating. So they got rid of that, and they ripped our Pell Grant away. So I had 2.5 years of my college completed. I watched a lot of inmates go off the rails because it took their hope from them. It was a horrible decision. So this crime bill that snatched everybody's hope away, I found myself in the position of trying to help other inmates to hang on. Does that make sense? So I get out after 7.5 years. After 7.5 years, what was my dream? What did I want to be? I wanted to be a fireman. Now I couldn't be a fireman because I had 2 felonies. That's what everybody was always quick to tell me that. You know, whenever you come from tough things or you got tough situations, they're always quick to tell you what you can't do. But I became the different person. Now don't tell me what I can't do because I'm going to prove you wrong by doing it. Okay? I don't do it in order because I'm mad at them. I do it to give them hope. Because the only reason that people believe they can't achieve something is because they don't have the hope to believe it. So I'm going to show them this. So here I go. My first job when I got out, I was in the halfway house. Restaurant business. Bus boy. Cleaning tables. Was that a firefighter job?
Nope.
No. But I was on my way because I was the best bus boy they had. Within a couple months, what do you think I was doing? I was a server. Then I was so good at that, they let me train the servers. Then I got so good at that, I was managing servers. Then I became a banquet supervisor, an assistant manager. I was in this restaurant business for like 5 years. This is in Atlanta. Now, this is really nice restaurants, white tablecloths. People are paying like $75 to $150 a piece to eat there. So I was making good money. 5 years into this, I was making good money. Probably making $75,000 a year waiting tables, 4 or 5 tables a night for 4 nights a week. That's pretty good money, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But I was still feeling empty because what did I want to be?
Firefighter.
Fireman. 9/11 happened. I was in the restaurant. I'll never forget it that morning. The owners of our restaurant were from New York, and I watched those planes hit the tower. I watched the towers drop. But the thing that hit me the most is I watched all those people going in. And I literally remember the impact that it had on me, that when those towers collapsed, I literally watched all those people die. And at that point I realized my life has to have more meaning than this. So at that point, a little bit longer, I applied for pardons in the state of Georgia. In the minimum amount of time that I could get pardons, I got 2 pardons for those robberies. Where do you think I went?
To the fire department.
Fire department. Now, here's what I didn't do. I didn't sit there and put myself on a plane to New York City. Because this is the mindset we got now with too many people, okay? My life has been hard, I'm going to get on a plane. New York owes me a job because my life has been difficult. So I'm going to go and demand $35 an hour because my life has been tough. Do you think that would have worked?
No.
No. I went to a volunteer fire department. I told the chief, I'll be the best firefighter you got. In the meantime, I'll clean bathrooms, scrub the floors, wash the gear, wash the trucks, whatever you need me to do. But trust me, when you put me on that truck, I'll be the best one you got. She sent me to the fire academy not too long after that. I graduated, did very well. Within 1 year, I was a paid firefighter just outside of Atlanta. Pretty sweet, right? I could stop there, and it's a pretty miraculous story. But I wasn't done yet. Life wasn't done yet, okay? I'm doing fire services for 5 years. 5 years later, after the pardon, I find myself in the same courtroom in front of the same judge with the same district attorney, okay? And my whole record is getting completely expunged. You know what that means? They erase the whole thing. Everything about it's gone. It's a pretty amazing thing because they just don't do that. Within 1 year, I was on a huge plane heading over to Iraq as a firefighter with the Department of Defense to help protect the troops and the civilians over there supporting the war. Crazy. The Super Bowl of firefighting, making 6 figures a year, tax-free money, reestablishing my life, but more than anything for me, it wasn't the money. It was now I was doing the ultimate thing that I could do to support what happened on 9/11, the day that changed my life. Does that make sense? So there I was. Now, I was there for 2 years. Halfway through that deployment, you're not going to believe where it got me. I worked really hard. No matter how much, man, it was horrible. But no matter what the difficulty was, eventually I got promoted to a position helping to run the safety division for all of the fire departments in the war theater of Iraq. Isn't that crazy? Now think about my life. Let's replay. How many times did I try to commit suicide?
2.
How many years did I sit in prison?
7.5.
Okay. Who was it that abused me?
And
Okay.
And
And mom abused me too by not reporting, and the scout leader, right? Horrible life, okay? What else happened in my life that was bad?
You're a rebounder.
That's right, rebounding in relationships, addiction, everything, right? Lost custody of my son, just a whole train wreck of a life. By this time, guess what happened? I reestablished a relationship with my boy. Now we have a great relationship. I learned through counseling to forgive my father. Even though he never changed, I released him. And I was able to give the best gift to my father that he was able to have before he died 15 years ago. He died from a rare genetic illness. A rare genetic illness. It's called HATTR. It's a form of amyloidosis. It's a lot like Lou Gehrig's disease. It just completely debilitates you. He never smoked, never drank in his life. Healthy, fit as a fiddle, but it took him in 1 year. By the time he got the diagnosis, he was gone within 12 months. I just found out 2 months ago I have that gene. But there's no sign of the illness in my life yet. The gift that I was able to give to my father was showing them that I became the man that he was unable to be. I've always said whenever I present, I've been doing this for 9 years, and I've always said, you know what, I've been blessed to be able to go through everything difficult that a kid could go through. The only thing that I haven't actually had come into my life yet is a possible terminal illness. And boom, 2 months ago, I just find out I got that gene, right? So now I'm like, you guys are sitting here looking at me like, man, this guy's crazy. This guy's talking about his daddy died from that disease and he could have it. You know what? It's game on. You know why? Because now I got something else to talk about. That's what life is all about, guys. Life is about going through the stuff and putting it to work. Everybody say that. Going through the stuff,
Go through the stuff.
put it to work.
Put it to work.
Going through the stuff,
Go through the stuff.
put it to work.
Put it to work.
This is one of my favorite sayings that's come through my mind. And here it is. You ready? If you go through stuff in your life and you don't do the work to get over it and actually put it to work to help others, you just made a conscious decision to suffer for nothing at all. You might as well put it to work and change somebody's life with it. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So now I come back from Iraq. It's 2011. I get to West Virginia. I relocated there because my wife is from there. I'm not from West Virginia. They call me the Batman of West Virginia. That's just because where I'm headquarters, because it's horrible, the stuff that kids go through there and families. I wanted to get a fire service job, but they said, "Oh, sorry, you're too old. You're over 35. You can't be a firefighter in West Virginia." I'm like, seriously, man? I mean, come on. I can't put out a trailer in West Virginia, but I can support the military over here in Iraq. It doesn't make any sense. Nevertheless, and that sent me into some depression, actually, because think about how much work do you think I put into going and building that fire career? It was a dream for how long? And when that was stripped from me, the depression tried to sneak back in. So what do you think I did this time? You think I held it inside and didn't talk to anybody?
No.
No, I did it right. I found me Dr. Cherie Overfeld, Barbersville, West Virginia. I got myself in front of a counselor. I said, "Look, here's the way I'm feeling. Here's what's going on. This situation's rocking me, and I want to do something about this." Went through a whole year of counseling and all this stuff, deciphering that. She helped me navigate it all. Next thing you know, September 4th of 2012, in the middle of the night, 2:30 in the morning, you know what happened? 2 words woke me up in the middle of the night. It was the craziest thing. Be Batman. I'm like, who in the heck? Be Batman. Over and over and over again. I woke my wife up and said, "Man, I think God's telling me to be Batman." She said, this is literally what my wife said, "You do whatever God tells you to do. I'm going back to sleep." She goes back to sleep. The next day, $3,500. I borrowed money. My mom was my first business angel. See, I'd already healed relationships with my mom too. My mom's life has changed. She's got God back in her life. Amazing things are happening for her too. So it's amazing. See, so when I made the decision to do things in my life, it impacted the life of others around me. My son, my mom. You see how that works? It's contagious. Hope is contagious when you put it to work. Problem is, everybody's waiting for somebody else to do something and nobody wants to do it themselves. Ain't gonna work. If you want change in your life, you're gonna have to lace your boots up and go to work. So I'm like, okay, so here we go. Now I've been doing this 9 years. I've laid to rest almost 35 kids who've passed away from dog attacks, school shootings, suicide, cancer, leukodystrophy, you name it. All these kids have one thing in common. You know what it is? None of them took their stuff with them. You know what else stayed behind? Their skin color. Isn't that something? Showed me that skin color don't even matter because it don't go with us when we go. So why is everybody fighting over it? Seriously? So now, here I am, 9 years later. Everywhere I go, I teach 4 things. These are the 4 things that I learned to do in my life that gave me the direction to overcome the stuff I went through. You ready? If you'll do these 4 things, you can overcome whatever you need to overcome in your life. Trust me, it doesn't matter how tough your life has been. It doesn't matter who has let you down. It doesn't matter how many people don't like you, how many people have disappointed you. Your success is completely determined by how much effort you want to put in to getting there. In life, we have a choice. We have a choice of either being overwhelmed by our circumstances or overcoming those circumstances. That choice is for everybody. Even Michael Jordan can say so. Greatest basketball player of all time. Some say, well, what does he have to do with this? He's loaded rich. He wasn't always. Matter of fact, they told him he was never good enough. Michael Jordan wasn't born a great basketball player. Do you all understand that? He made himself one. While everybody else was out partying and doing their thing, he was practicing over and over and over. And Dylan, unfortunately, he would have been a great one too. He'd have probably been the next Larry Bird. He would have. So it's unfortunate that we lost somebody that great. This is why what we're doing today is so important. Because we can't afford to lose anybody, regardless of whether they're a basketball star or not. Everybody matters. Do we understand that? Remember, I was just the nobody kid that everybody picked on, and now where am I at in my life? Everybody has a story. Everybody say never give up.
Never give up.
Say it again.
Never give up.
Never give up means you got to understand life is not going to be easy. Life is not going to be fair. Period. Point blank, end of story. That's the way life is. But the great stuff is always on the other side of the tough stuff. Everybody's always talking about, oh, well, if someone will do this or give me that, my whole life will be better. No, it won't. Your life won't be better until you make it better. I don't care if someone gives us $1 million apiece. You can give $1 million to somebody who's gone through stuff in their life and haven't worked through it, and that $1 million will be gone, and that $1 million will probably destroy their life. Or you can give $1 million to somebody who's done the work, gotten the counseling, changed things for them, and is on the right path, and it can actually change many other lives. Does this make sense? Mm-hmm. Never give up means that no matter what happens in our life, don't ever use the tough things in your life as an excuse to quit. Because if you quit, we all suffer. It's like a ball bearing in a motor. Think about a car engine for a second. You get this car engine, like the Batmobile. It's got a great engine in it. It looks beautiful. It's a 350. It looks pretty on the outside. Inside, there's a whole bunch of parts that you don't even see. Little bitty gaskets. Little bitty ball bearings, right? Mm-hmm. What happens if one of those bearings goes out? What happens to the whole motor? The whole thing locks up. The whole motor will lock up based on one little part that you don't see giving out. That's the way the world is. That's the way the world is. Every single one of us matter, no matter how. If you look in the mirror and you think that you're insignificant, you see yourself as a little ball bearing that nobody notices, those are the most important parts in the motor. Don't forget that. Never give up means you do not use the tough things as an excuse to quit. The great stuff is always on the other side of the tough stuff. Remember that. And as a society, when are we going to stop looking towards somebody else, whether it be a political party, whether it be a politician, or someone else to do all the work that we need to be doing ourselves? When are we going to stop putting all our hope in somebody outside of us to do everything that we should be empowering ourselves to do? That needs to be on CNN, don't you agree? That's a good one. That's when countries change, guys. That's when people change. People don't change when people get us pitted against each other. Fighting, black versus white, boy versus girl, church versus this, Republican versus Democrat. That ain't going to change nothing. Matter of fact, it's going to ruin us. And we need you all to do better. And on behalf of all the grown-ups of the world, I'm going to apologize to you right now. On behalf of all the grown-ups in the world, I'm so sorry we have failed you by showing you the example that you see with us right now. I'm sorry that when you wake up every day and you see the TV, you see a whole bunch of grown-ups who won't listen to each other about nothing. But I beg you to please do better. Because if you don't change this, I don't even want to know what this country's going to look like in 30 years. And it doesn't matter who you vote for. It doesn't matter whether you worship a donkey or an elephant. It's irrelevant. You guys are the ones to change this. You got it? Mm-hmm. Number 2, everybody say always do the right thing.
Always do the right thing.
Okay. Always do the right thing means if you want to be great, if you want to flip stuff around, guys, you got to be really good. You got to be masters of this. Everybody say listening.
Listening.
Follow instructions.
Follow instructions.
All right, now when you get teen brain around middle school to high school, your brain is maturing. You think you know everything. Rules don't matter. I can get away with this. Wrong answer. Your brain is only halfway cooked. Okay? It's not going to be done until you're about 26. Now, if you've gone through some kind of trauma, maybe it was a parental divorce, or maybe it was some sort of abuse or anything, or if you've been pumping nicotine or anything into your system, that growth is going to be delayed. Okay, some people might not even mature until they're up into the 30s or 40s. That's why, seriously, that's why you've got people in their 30s and 40s running around acting like they're 12 years old. The decision-making processes are all jacked up. Their emotional centers are all jacked up. They can't hold a relationship down, okay? We're having all these kids that don't have the kind of parents they need and deserve to have. I mean, all this stuff is happening right now. It's just a train wreck, is it not? It is. It's truly a train wreck. Always do the right thing means that you got to surround yourself with good grown-ups in your life that can help give you the guidance you need. Perfect example of this is the Batman story. Bruce Wayne experiences the most traumatic thing a kid can experience. He watches both of his parents get gunned down right in front of him. You think that's traumatic? Mm-hmm. There's a reason the story was told that way. They took one of the most traumatic situations that a boy could experience. Watch what they taught you. Bruce Wayne was then adopted. Now they bring in that component. He was an orphan. So he's adopted and brought in by who? Alfred the butler, right? Here's what Bruce did right. Here's what Bruce did right. He talked to Alfred about all the stuff that he was angry about. Bruce had anger. Did he have a right? Mm-hmm. Yes. But he put it to work. Alfred was like his counselor. When he went to school, he applied himself. He did everything he needed to do to rebuild. Even though he was angry, even though he was sad, he was going to put it to work, right? As a result, he became probably the greatest superhero that we know. You know what makes him so great? Because he doesn't need superpowers as a crutch to do what he does. He took his trauma and put it to work. He took the abuse and put it to work. He took the death of his parents in front of him and put it to work. The Joker did the opposite. See, the Joker went through a horrible family. Dad wasn't there. Mom wasn't very good. She was in and out of relationships. The kids picked on him, made fun of him. Did anybody see that movie, Joker? It was really tragic and really sad. I think it's a great high school project, especially. I think kids should be forced to watch the Joker movie because it shows you what happens to people when they're constantly re-victimized through bullying. Because see, when you bully somebody, you re-victimize that person. People that are going through stuff at home or people that are different because of things that they go through in their life, as kids continue to bully, it re-victimizes people. And it's abuse. Bullying is abuse. We know that, right? Mm-hmm. It is abuse. And we have to understand that. So that was the Joker's life. Well, he chose the opposite. The Joker, all he wanted to do was watch the world burn. Who said burn? There you go. It's all he wanted. Why? Because he didn't do the Bruce Wayne thing. He allowed his anger to turn into hate, held everything inside, didn't talk to anybody about what was going on in his life, never got help for it, and as a result, he became who we know today. Right? The Joker. So Bruce Wayne was a perfect example of doing things right when you go through something tough. But the number one thing he did was he listened to the good grown-ups in his life that guided him the right way. Does this make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Teen brain tries to convince you that you know everything. Trust me. But it doesn't, because your brain's not going to mature until what age?
26.
26. Okay, number 3. Everybody say help other people.
Help other people.
All right. This is a cool one, because the more good things you do for others, the more great things that'll come into your life. You'll actually discover your true purpose in life when you learn to serve others. It's the craziest thing. And right now in schools, especially a school this big, there's always someone that needs help. I'm going to encourage you to keep a journal. Okay? The journal is not going to be made just so you can write down and hide it. Wrong. This is going to be a record and share. Everybody say record.
Record.
Share.
Share.
Record.
Record.
Share.
Share.
You see, when you share what's in this journal that I'm going to teach you with, when you share what's in it, that's where the power to help comes in. You understand? It does you no good to write down something that you or somebody else are going through if you don't share it with somebody who can get you help for it. Do you understand? Okay. So you're going to get yourself a notebook. On the front of this notebook, you're going to write the 4 things that you're learning as a reminder. Never give up, always do the right thing, help other people, never be a bully. Real simple principles. But man, could you imagine what the news would look like if every grown-up just did these 4 things every day? Oh my gosh, it'd be an amazing world, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. In the journal, you're going to write down bad things that might happen for you or bad things that might happen to someone else. You're going to write down the dates, the times, what happened, when it happened, how you felt about it. All the details, who witnessed it, who was involved, and then you're also going to write down who you're going to report it to. And then when you report it to them, you're going to write down what they did to help you, when you reported it, and what they did to help you. Now, what do you do if that person doesn't help you?
Talk to somebody else.
Take it to somebody else. And make sure when you take that journal to the next person, write down the new person, and make sure that the second person knows who the first one was that didn't help you. Because that person needs help too. Because the only reason they didn't help is because, for whatever reason, they got baggage and they didn't want to help. And they need help too. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's how we change this. Guys, listen, if you want drugs out of your school, cops ain't going to keep it out. You are. If you want bullying to stop and you want people to be treated with respect and dignity the way that they should be, you're going to be the ones to stop it. If you want suicide to stop, you're going to be the ones to stop it. He can't do it. He can't see everything. You can't see everything. You are the eyes and the ears for this entire school. You got to look out for each other. That means you got to write it down and share it. Write it down and share it. If you write it down and then throw it in your closet, is that going to make any difference?
No.
Is it going to make an impact?
No.
Is it going to save a life? Is it going to prevent a shooting? Is it going to prevent an overdose? Is it going to prevent someone from going to prison?
No.
Guys, do you realize that that journal makes you a hero? It doesn't make you a tattletale. Tattletale and a snitch is just somebody that tells on somebody to get them in trouble. A hero is somebody that reports something because they really care about somebody and they want to get them some help. My big question is, why do kids have to die for people to start caring? It doesn't have to be that way. Make sense? Number 4, everybody say never be a bully.
Never be a bully.
This is a big one. It's real simple, guys. Everybody deserves respect. You never know what somebody's going through. You've heard this before, but it's so true. Look at my life. Okay? You don't want to be the addition to somebody else's nightmare. Do you really want to be the one that sends somebody over the edge because of something you said or something you did? A little story about a girl that came over here from Holland with her family. Beautiful girl. All the girls in school were jealous of her because she was so darn pretty. All she was doing was trying to go to school, trying to study though. That's all. But all the guys loved her. She wasn't even dating. The girls hated her so much, they sent her notes, put stuff on her Snapchat, Facebook, everything. Here's what she did that was really, really smart. She screenshotted and printed everything that was put out. She kept them in a shoebox. All the emails, all the notes in the locker, everything. Kids' names, identities, everything. And by the time the prosecutor's office got a hold of everything, you know, when you delete something from the internet, do you really think it's gone? Mm-hmm. Wrong answer. The good thing is all of that is admissible in court. The sad part, though, was that she never talked about what was going on in her life. She never reported it. And unfortunately, you know what happened? They found that box in the same closet where she hung herself. Her parents took that box to the prosecutor's office. All of those kids that were involved in those letters and all those notes and everything else were all found guilty. They were all prosecuted for aggravated stalking and harassment. They probably got probation. No big deal. Some of you might sit there and say, okay, that's no big deal. They'll still be able to rebuild their life. Wrong answer. Because they also discovered that some of the parents of the kids that were picking on her relentlessly and brought about her death knew that their kids were that way. So guess what happened? They were taken to civil court. So that means those families were taken to civil court, sued for everything that they own. Their retirement, their cars, their homes, college funds, everything, because of something their kid did that they didn't bother to stop. Bullying has major consequences now. Parents are sick and tired of it, and now they're starting to press charges, and now the courts are starting to allow them to sue people. Everything that we write, everything that we Snapchat is admissible in court. Can I give you some good advice? You ready for this? I know social media is possible, but listen close. If social media is a source of stress for you in any way, shape, or form, delete it. Delete it. It's overrated. I got 50,000+ followers on my Facebook page. When the transmission on the Batmobile went out, how many of them you think helped?
None.
3. It's overrated. The blue thumbs are overrated. Friends aren't what they say they are. You're better off getting to know friends eye to eye and face to face than to try to collect Snapchat and Facebook friends. It's a waste of time. So now I'm going to give you a test on what I just taught you. We covered a lot of material. I'm going to say the first part of the sentence. You're going to say the last word, and then we'll take a nice, cool little group picture with these guys, and we'll be good to go. You ready? And then I got to go to an elementary school after this. And I'm going to tell those elementary kids, you know what? I just talked to the middle schoolers, and I guarantee you they're going to treat you with dignity and respect when you get there. Here we go. Never give. Always do the right. Now, those of you that are actually watching this, you have to do this right now as you're watching this too. It needs to be loud in this school. Never give. Always do the right thing. Help other
People.
and never be a bully. See, help other people always drags. I've even done this thing at stadiums with thousands of people. You know what? And that one always drags. You know why? Because unfortunately, as a society, I'll give you an illustration. Oh, I don't have my phone. Unfortunately, as a society, we've become too preoccupied with the selfie and all about me instead of looking out for others. So now we got to reprogram ourselves that other people matter. Okay? Always do the right thing. Help other people. Never be a bully. And never give. All right, fantastic. Now, is life going to be easy?
No.
Is life going to be fair?
No.
Is everybody in the world supposed to like you?
No.
Does it matter if they don't?
No.
You got to learn to say hashtag so what. Everybody say hashtag so what.
Hashtag so what?
Somebody doesn't like your hair, so
What?
So what?
somebody says you're too tall, so
What?
you're too short, so
What?
I don't like your mommy, so
So what?
I don't like your daddy, so
what?
you'll never be anybody. So
So what?
guys, I've had everything thrown at me, including the kitchen sink. You know what I did with that kitchen sink? I busted it up and turned it into a Ming vase. You know what a Ming vase is?
No.
I didn't think so. It's a really rare vase that's worth a whole bunch. Basically, I'm telling you, I took the lemons and made lemonade out of it. No matter what life throws at you, you can do that, okay? All right, last thing I'm going to say, if you or somebody you know goes through something tough, write it and report it, share it. You got it? No more secrets. Everybody say no more secrets.
No more secrets.
All right, we're done? I'm going to take a picture together. Okay?
Dang it.